Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Trilbee and welcome to Avengers Month. As part of Avengers Month, I'll be taking a look at 5 of the biggest comic book movies in recent memory, but first, a quick history lesson.
In 1978, Richard Donner created the first Superman movie, inspired by the huge boom in the fantasy genre thanks to Star Wars. Over the next decade and a half, superhero movies were some of the most popular pieces of media in the entertainment industry. 3 Superman sequels, 2 Tim Burton Batman movies, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Punisher, Dick Tracy, The Crow, and many more. Then, the mid-90s happened, and superhero movies started to hit rock bottom. The Phantom, Steel, Captain America, Fantastic Four, the latter 2 were so bad that they didn't even get a theatrical release. But the final nail in the coffin was Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin, and many people considered the superhero movie genre to be dead. But then, the 2000s happened. Bryan Singer's X-Men was a huge hit and reinvigorated the dead subgenre. Old favourites returned, such as Superman, Batman and the Punisher, and new heroes joined the revolution, like Hellboy, Blade, Ghost Rider, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and Spider-Man. Superhero movies reached their peak in 2008, with releases such as Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, The Dark Knight, Iron Man, and The Incredible Hulk. In my opinion, all 4 of those movies are some of the best action films of the past decade. For Avengers Month, we'll be taking a look at those last 2. Around 2004, comic book juggernauts Marvel started their own independent movie studio to make films based on their own properties. Iron Man was the first one out of the gates in 2008, after acquiring the movie rights to the character from New Line Cinema, who had been trying to make a movie adaptation for almost 5 years with director Joss Whedon. Sound familiar? We'll get back to him in the future.
God, and I thought comic books had their own messed up internal continuity. But little did we know that 2008's Iron Man was the start of something great, just a taste of things to come. A huge saga spanning 6 films over the course of 4 years, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, so sit back, relax and enjoy my review of Jon Favreau's Iron Man. Look, it's the 2-disc thing, it's got an awesome slip-out case and oh, I love this thing. Okay, whatever, cue the title card.
The comic book character of the same name was originally created by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, Don Heck and Jack Kirby in 1963. Stan Lee wanted to create a businessman superhero who dealt with weapons. After all, this was during the height of the Cold War. He made his first appearance in an 18-page story as part of the Tales of Suspense anthology series. Also in 1963, Iron Man appeared as one of the founding members of the Avengers. The character evolved and changed over the next few years until he finally got his own independent series, The Invincible Iron Man, released in May 1968, and Iron Man comics are still being published by Marvel to this very day.
This information has all been research on my part. I don't really read comic books, so this information, I can't even begin to tell you about the history of the character or any of the key stories or anything. So yeah, movies are more my expertise. So with that said, let's take a look at the history of this movie adaptation.
In 1990, Universal Studios acquired the rights to make a movie with Stuart Gordon to direct. Who's Stuart Gordon? One of the men behind Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. An interesting choice for director. Then in 1996, 20th Century Fox acquired the rights. Nicolas Cage and Tom Cruise both expressed interest in playing the lead, and Quentin Tarantino was even in talks to direct, but nothing was ever finalised. New Line Cinema bought the rights to the franchise and even attached Nick Cassavetes as director to meet a 2006 release, but the deal fell through. Marvel bought the rights back, and here we are now with Iron Man.
When this movie came out in 2008, it was a huge critical and commercial success, but does it still hold up? What do you think, Jim? Well, I'm trying to get you to talk, but I don't get... find out.
Iron Man is an origin story for the titular character. Head of a weapons manufacturing company, Stark Industries, Tony Stark's military escort is ambushed by terrorists while out in Afghanistan. Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., who was undergoing one of the biggest career comebacks in entertainment history the year this movie was released, is critically wounded and held hostage by a terrorist group called the Ten Rings, who want him to build them a missile. With the help of his fellow captive, Dr. Yinsen, played by Sean Tube, he creates a miniature arc reactor, a power source that keeps the shrapnel in his chest that he received in the ambush from reaching his heart. They also create a large hulking mechanical suit for Tony to engineer his escape. Tony uses the suit to escape and destroy the terrorist weapons, which were supplied from his own company without his knowledge, but Yinsen is killed during the ensuing carnage. When Tony is rescued and brought back home to America, he shuts down the weapon division of his company until he decides what is best for him and the world. This angers his deceased father's old business partner, Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges, who decides it's time for Tony to step down so he can become the head of Stark Industries and harness the power of his metal suit. Throw in a love interest, Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, a concerned best friend, James Rose, played by Terrence Howard, and the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division, working behind the scenes, and you are left with a plot that has a lot going on.
Initially, it seems like there's too much going on in the film's 2-hour runtime, but believe it or not, the individual elements of the plot are so well implemented that it never feels convoluted or confusing.
Don't be fooled by the 12A certificate. This isn't a movie that kids are going to fully understand. This is a superhero movie about a businessman. The villain is a businessman, the love interest is a PA, and the motivations centre around economics, money and stocks. However, as is par for the course for a superhero origin story, Iron Man isn't about the plot, but the characters and how they evolve, and on that level, Iron Man succeeds admirably. The interesting thing about the movie Iron Man that makes it different from any other superhero origin movie is that Tony Stark gained his abilities through sheer necessity, as opposed to chance or choice or force. Peter Parker just happened to get bit by a spider, Bruce Wayne chose to become a figure of darkness to fight crime, and Hal Jordan was simply chosen. While Tony was ambushed and held captive by forces beyond his control, he built a crude piece of robot armor to escape, just so he could survive and prevent his captors from using the weapons his company built. It's a very unique origin story, and since all of this takes place within the first act, it means that Iron Man is an engaging film right out of the gates.
But a unique origin story does not a good movie make. You need a great lead. But thankfully Iron Man has one of the best leading superhero actors in recent memory, because Robert Downey Jr., he's a joy to watch.
Director Jon Favreau said that he chose to cast Robert Downey Jr. because his personal problems in life shared many similarities to the character of Tony Stark. 2008 really was his year, not just with this performance, but his Academy Award nominated turn as Kirk Lazarus in the Ben Stiller comedy Tropic Thunder.
I know who I am! I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude! What?
And of course his performance as Tony Stark is really what elevates this movie to greatness. The movie opens in medias res as Tony is being escorted by soldiers through Afghanistan, and we instantly begin to see the laid-back, carefree attitude of his character.
Is it cool if I take a picture with you?
Yes, it's very cool. I don't want to see this on your MySpace page.
Yeah, MySpace. You can tell that this is a 2008 movie. Honestly, I went there the other day, I swear I heard an echo.
And while I'm talking about the opening, I might as well mention the initial convoy attack. It's actually tense stuff. Well, it's not exactly Saving Private Ryan, but it is effective. It's after the attack that the film flashbacks 36 hours earlier, and we see what Tony Stark is really like, and one thing is very obvious. We want to be him. Seriously, how awesome is this lifestyle? A huge penthouse on a cliff, a personal jet with female dancers, a great car collection surrounded by amazing technology, and enough money to buy the freaking moon. You want to be Tony Stark and you are envious of him, and you can't help but be captivated by his I'm too cool to care attitude. He's funny, quick-witted, and clearly an intelligent guy.
You've been called the Da Vinci of our time. What do you say to that?
Absolutely ridiculous, I don't paint.
And what do you say to your other nickname, the Merchant of Death?
That's not bad. Let me guess. Berkeley?
Brown, actually.
Well, Ms. Brown, It's an imperfect world, but it's the only one we've got. I guarantee you, the day weapons are no longer needed to keep the peace, I'll start making bricks and beams for baby hospitals.
You rehearse that much?
Every night in front of the mirror before bedtime.
I can see that.
I'd like to show you firsthand.
Robert Downey Jr. works so well with the rest of the cast. Just with the way they talk to each other, you get the sense that they have a history. Even if there isn't a history mentioned in the dialogue, it's a testament to not just the actors, but Jon Favreau's ability to direct and cast actors. Most of the dialogue in the movie feels natural and improvised. And that's because it actually is. The movie went into production without a finished script, so the actors improvised many of their lines, and with the case of Robert Downey Jr., he always added something new during each take, and he even wrote many of the lines himself, including the Jericho speech.
Is it better to be feared or respected? And I say, is it too much to ask for both? With that in mind, I humbly present the crown jewel of Stark Industries' Freedom Line. It's the first missile system to incorporate our proprietary repulsor technology. They say the best weapon is one you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once. That's how Dad did it, that's how America does it, and it's worked out pretty well so far.
I would be genuinely interested to see what the finished script looked like and compared it to what was filmed and edited into the finished product. This makes it hard for me to compliment the writing because while 4 people are credited at the end of the movie, I don't know who wrote what and what was improvised, but either way, the dialogue in this movie is simply great. Because Tony Stark is such a big personality, it could have been so easy for the character to wear out his welcome and become annoying as opposed to entertaining, which is what I call Sparrow Syndrome, but it's a very smart portrayal by Robert. He and the writers know just when to reel the character in to prevent him from coming across as too unlikable or too obnoxious. I would honestly choose Tony Stark over Clark Kent any day, because at least he's not a perfect goody two-shoes with practically no depth or flaws to his character. He's an asshole, but he is a likeable asshole, if that makes sense. It also helps that Robert is a very capable dramatic actor. His change from self-loving playboy to someone who wants to make the world a better place actually feels genuine because of Robert's portrayal. His story arc throughout the movie is believable, and it's mainly due to the performance. Huge kudos to Robert for being able to sell such a transition. Despite the title of the movie being Iron Man, this isn't about Iron Man, it's about the man inside the suit.
Tony, you know that I would help you with anything, but I cannot help you if you're going to start all of this again.
There is nothing except this. There's no art opening. There is no benefit. There is nothing to sign. There is the next mission and nothing else.
Well, that's so. Well, then I quit.
You stood by my side all these years while I reaped the benefits of destruction. And now that I'm trying to protect the people that I put in harm's way, you're gonna walk out?
You're going to kill yourself, Tony. I'm not going to be a part of it.
I shouldn't be alive. Unless it was for a reason. I'm not crazy, Pepper. I just finally know what I have to do. And I know in my heart that it's right.
The character's sense of progression during the second act is easily the best portion of the movie as he tries out new technologies, tests the suit, goes on his first test drive. There's a great sense of fun to these proceedings, and while there are some big laughs to be had, it never descends into self-parody.
Okay. Activate hand controls. You're going to start out nice and easy. You're going to see 10% thrust capacity, achieve lift. And 3, 2, 1.
It's also during these segments that we learn about Tony's relationship with his machines, and the way he interacts with them are fun but charming at the same time.
Please don't follow me around with it either, because I feel like I'm going to catch on fire spontaneously. Just stand down. If something happens, then come in. And again, let's bring it up to 2.5.
His delivery on the jokes are also played straight, which really adds to the comedy factor. It really sounds like he's coming up with these lines on the fly instead of them being scripted.
Hello.
Tony,
Who's this?
it's Rhodes.
Sorry, hello?
I said it's Rhodes.
Speak up, please.
What the hell is that noise?
Oh yeah, I'm driving the top down.
As for the supporting cast, there's Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, Tony's personal assistant. When compared to other love interests in the subgenre of comic book movies, she initially doesn't do an awful lot to stand out, but as the movie progresses, she becomes more and more interesting. She's unique in that she isn't just a friend to the titular character, but she's a long-serving employee. In a way, Tony and her are forced to be best friends, because they don't really have anybody else, and that's a relationship that I find very interesting, as opposed to someone having to pine for their love interest affection like Peter Parker. She also finds out Tony's alter ego quite early on in the movie, which is surprising, because in comparison to most superhero movies, the love interest either never finds out the hero's secret identity, or does during the sequel. I give props to the filmmakers for not playing all their cards too early, as Tony and Pepper aren't even a couple by the end of the film, at least not in a conventional sense. Paltrow slips into the role very naturally, and she effortlessly sells the by-the-books assistant role.
I do anything and everything that Mr. Stark requires, including occasionally taking out the trash. Will that be all?
Her on-screen relationship with Robert Downey Jr. is also fun to watch, as she plays the grounded role to Tony's eccentric personality. As for the other main supporting character, there's Colonel James Rhodes, played by Terrence Howard. He's essentially the closest thing Tony has to an actual friend, or at least in this film, and Terrence and Tony work so well together on screen that you feel like these two have a long history and that they hold a great amount of respect for each other, despite not blatantly saying it. There's a great sense of camaraderie, and the ad-libbing of the actors helps get that across without Rhodes just becoming a black sidekick.
But of course, to the yin must come the yang. You can't have a great hero without a great villain, and luckily there is one in this movie in the form of Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges.
I have a weird set of feelings about Jeff Bridges in this movie. When I first saw the film, I really loved him in it. But then I saw The Dark Knight and I forgot all about him after Heath Ledger's fantastic portrayal of the clown prince of crime, the Joker. Then when I bought Iron Man on DVD and found The Dark Knight under the Christmas tree, courtesy of my brother, thank you very much, I saw them both within quick succession, and I really wasn't a fan of Obadiah.
But then, after distancing myself from both films for a while and then watching Iron Man for the purposes of this review, I can really appreciate the character.
I'm not even going to begin comparing the Joker and Obadiah. They are trying to do two completely different things, but what makes Obadiah work is the context of the film he's in. He's quite a fleshed out character, and I'm very surprised that Jeff Bridges was able to balance the two big elements of this character. You see, during the first half of the film, he has to be helpful and supportive of Tony, but in the second half, he has to be trying to kill him and take over his company. Not many actors can get across that transition, but Bridges does it, and he does it well. I've only read one Iron Man comic, and if memory serves, I don't think Obadiah was in that, so his change to the Ironmonger at the end was a legitimate surprise and a great twist. Jeff really sells the father figure for Tony, but there is the occasional flash of an ulterior motive that you'll only notice on the second viewing if you know the twist, or if you already know the character from the comic books. I find the supportive Obadiah more fascinating than the evil one in the second half, especially since he spent a lot of time gloating instead of getting the job done. Not to mention, when he finally does become the Ironmonger at the end, it's a bit of an anticlimax because the fight between him and Tony is pretty short, but I'll touch upon that later when I talk about the action. The rest of the supporting cast are a bit mixed. Agent Coulson, played by Greg Clark, plays a great agent, and Sean Toob brings heart and depth to Dr. Yinsen. There's also Ferran Tahir as Raza, the leader of the Ten Rings, and he leaves no impact. Like, at all.
So yeah, for the most part, we have some really good characters, and what I like about the film is that it's not about the suit, it's about the man inside the suit. But that doesn't stop the suit from being all kinds of awesome.
The special effects in this movie were done by Industrial Light and Magic, who, the year before, made the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, and you can see why the special effects team was brought on board for the film. The emphasis on metallic and intricate machinery is something that the crew clearly specialise in. The same strengths from their work on Transformers apply here. Everything seems to have a genuine weight to it. You feel like there was an actual force and mass interacting with everything on screen, even though it was done on a computer. There's a huge amount of detail and moving parts, and they all look great, with a great use of motion capture. The film definitely deserves its Academy Award nomination for Best Visual Effects. It's not just the huge stuff that looks impressive, but the tiny details, like how Pepper was able to put her hand in Tony's chest. That's some great and seamless special effects work. but the Iron Man suit itself looks amazing. The suit looks like it came straight out of a comic book panel. There isn't a single moment where Tony Stark in the suit doesn't look like a badass. Pure awesome, but the suit really is a great design, and by the end of the movie, you really want to own one. The visual effects for all the metal suits and everything else involving it look brilliant and seamless, as opposed to huge spectacular vistas. There's more of a focus on making them fit into the film. They look like they are really there, and the special effects are there to enhance the film rather than just be blind spectacle. And there's no rapid fire editing during the action sequences. The camera pulls back and allows us to look at the actor and admire the effects and the camera work, and to give the audience a large scope to work with. However, it's obvious that the action takes a back seat in terms of focus. There are 3 action set pieces. They're short but very sweet. I found the last action sequence to be disappointing because it's not really a full-on fight. Tony is using his old arc reactor chest unit, so his suit isn't nearly at full capacity. I know that him working with very limited resources helps ratchet up the tension, but I just wanted to see 2 suits of armour battling out at full strength, just for a bit. So personally, that was a bit disappointing, because when it comes right down to it, sometimes you just want to see balls to the wall action. The sound design is just as impressive as the visual effects, and once again was very deserving of its Academy Award nomination for Best Sound Editing, which it lost to The Dark Knight. The machinery sounds great, the clanging of metal sounds genuine, and the sound effects help make the special effects themselves feel more real. The music score is also very good. The music was composed by Ramin Djawadi. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I do find him to be a very underrated composer. The orchestrations mainly consist of bass and strings, with a lot of metallic sound effects added in, which helps get across an industrial feel. There's also a heavy emphasis on metal, with electric guitar and percussion. It's a very appropriate soundtrack and definitely helps set the mood. It's a really good score, not to mention Black Sabbath over the credits helps make everything better.
So let's start wrapping this review up. Here's my conclusion.
Iron Man is a very unique superhero film, or at least it was for 2008, where most adaptations have a saint as the main character. We're left with a flawed, intriguing anti-hero. The villain does an unexpected but well executed 180, the characters are likeable, it's a blast from start to finish, and it just makes for a great watch. The writing is witty, the technical aspects of the film are brilliant, it's a load of fun, and it's exactly what you want from a summer blockbuster. The third act seems a bit slow, and I found the final battle to be a bit of an anticlimax, but there's a hell of a lot to enjoy about the film. It also ends on a very interesting note, which hints at Tony Stark becoming a superhero celebrity after giving away his secret identity to the world.
I am Iron Man.
He said it!
It's fun, fresh, and its foundations are iron-clad.
And that's all I really have to say about Iron Man. Now, next time, I'll be reviewing...
Jarvis.
Welcome home, son.
What the hell is going on?
I am Iron Man. You think you're the only superhero in the world? Mr. Stark, you've become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh.
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Holy shit, even I know what that means, and I don't read many comic books. That is Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson. From Marvel cartoons growing up, I always recognised Nick Fury as looking like this. However, in 2001, Marvel asked Samuel L. Jackson if they could use his likeness for an alternative version of Nick Fury, and he said yes, so the casting couldn't be any more perfect. It seems like Marvel are setting up their superhero movies to culminate in an Avengers movie.
Wait, if that's the case, then what hints are in this movie? What have I missed?
Well, there's Captain America's shield in the background of this shot, and that's about it. Oh, but Stan Lee makes a cameo in the film, you know, as he does.
Okay, so maybe there isn't a lot to analyse in terms of Avengers Easter eggs, but I'm sure there will be in future installments. So with that said, be sure to join me next time for my review of The Incredible Hulk, and I'll see you guys next time. No! Jim!
Trumpets!